Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 188 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
Before we talk about what's coming up on today's show, I just wanted to say that we stand wholeheartedly with the people of Los Angeles and anybody else across our country who is standing up against ICE, the National Guard, who are protesting, peacefully protesting.
As is their constitutional right.
Yes, and are coming up against it.
Yes.
Wherever they are.
Yes, we do.
We stand with you.
100%.
Now, here's what's coming up in today's show. We have a brand new segment called The Why Files, where we share strange stories or developments in the vegan space. And our first installment examines why vegan advocate and director of the documentary Seaspiracy, Ali Abrizi, is no longer vegan.
You're going to want to tune in for this.
Yeah.
In our Noteworthy segment, we'll find out what Kenny Torella, reporter from Vox, thinks about the future of plant-based foods after he sampled vegan products over the course of 4 months. Kenny Torella is a senior reporter for Vox's Future Perfect section with a focus on animal welfare and the future of meat.
And in our main topic, we're reminding you that bird flu has not gone away, even though both the current administration and the mainstream media want you to believe that it has. We'll let you know what the NIH is doing or not doing to control the outbreak.
But before we get into all of that, what have we been up to these days?
What have we been up to? We were dealing with a little bit of Canadian wildfire smoke over the last several days.
Yep, a little bit.
Yeah, and our air quality was kind of atrocious there for a few days.
For a couple days.
Much better now.
It is. We got a nice rain today, and that seems to have helped.
Yeah. Yesterday, you could actually smell smoke in the air. It was a kind of an acrid smell in the air.
See, I couldn't smell it.
Didn't smell it?
I didn't smell it. I think I think maybe you have a more sensitive
smeller.
A more sensitive sense of smell than I do, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
The day this is airing, June 10th, Tuesday, is our 13th wedding anniversary.
It sure is.
So happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Pookie.
We have big plans of going to Wurlitzer Pizza.
Yes. Yes.
To celebrate our anniversary.
Yeah, we figured since it's, not one of those milestone anniversaries and all of that, we're just going to have kind of a normal day. We're going to get up in the morning. We're going to go to the gym, come home, clean ourselves up, change our clothes, and go get some pizza.
And go get some anniversary pizza.
Some awesome pizza.
Why not?
Yeah.
I have on the outline, tacos rule.
You're not wrong. Tacos do rule.
Yeah, we've had tacos couple of times over the last several weeks. We've made different iterations of tacos, and tacos are just a great way to use things in the refrigerator.
They really are.
Right?
They're a great fridge clean out mechanism.
Yeah, They really are. And that brings us to this week's recipe of the week, which is cauliflower tacos using my buffalo cauliflower recipe, which is already available on our Patreon. So if you're a member of that community, you can get that recipe for yourselves. I make this like crispy they're kind of like cauliflower buffalo wings, and then we put them in tacos.
They really are. They're fantastic. So if I'm not wrong, I would say that they are done in panko breadcrumbs.
They are. It's like a 2-step process. I make like a batter, and you batter dip them and then cover them in panko.
And they come out wonderfully crispy, and because they're baked, not fried, they're not greasy at all.
No.
So you're not getting the fats and the oils that you would from, for example, a fried cauliflower that you would get at a restaurant.
Right.
Yeah. So there's no deep frying process. They're really quite spectacular, and they make fabulous tacos.
They do make good tacos, and they're also just good on the side or on top of a salad.
So. Or, give me some, a nice dip, like a dill dip or a ranch dip or something. I could just have those little cauliflower bites and just dip them in stuff. And I'd be all for it.
And they make up pretty quickly. The breading process doesn't take that long. And I did a whole head of cauliflower yesterday, I think in like maybe 20 minutes.
That sounds about right.
And then I pop them in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes, and Bob's your uncle, as they say.
As you say. I don't think anybody else says that. But yeah, they're really tasty. And the cauliflower tacos we had yesterday, in addition to Christine's buffalo cauliflower, we had some pickled red cabbage. We
Yeesh.
had some fresh tomato and nice crunchy radish and a lovely cream sauce, like a chipotle cream sauce.
I made this like kind of flavored sour cream using vegan yogurt.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like it keeps popping up in our dishes
I make
lately.
it in different iterations. Well, and that's because the yogurt that I buy comes in such large containers.
That's true. You got to keep making sauce.
I have to keep making things with it.
Well, like that green sauce
Yeah.
that you made. I love that one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to call it, but it's just
kind of like an herby cream sauce.
it is an
Or
herby cream
dip.
sauce, but it's a little bit spicy too. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Good times. So now we're moving on to our very first installment of The Why Files. You may have heard about this, but Ali Tabrizi, who directed Seaspiracy, was, according to him, a level 5 vegan. He is no longer vegan, and we're going to tell you what spurred this.
Yes. According to Tabrizi himself, get ready. This is a big one. I have been vegan for 13 years. Not casually vegan, not I still eat honey vegan, not I eat oysters from time to time vegan, not even I wear secondhand leather vegan. I was puritanical vegan, the one always seen at protests, filming slaughterhouses undercover, and preaching the message of compassionate living to anyone who'd listen to me, all through my late teens and all of my 20s. In fact, even while backpacking the length and breadth of India at 18 years of age for 6 months, I didn't even swat a single mosquito, a practice of ahimsa I kept for many years after. I could have given the Jains a run for their money. I was that committed to my ethical convictions.
I'm just going to stop you there and just note that it seems that almost every time a vegan of, I don't know, high caliber or somebody who's in, like has a lot of followers or whatever, a high profile vegan, almost every time one of those people decides to no longer live a vegan lifestyle, they start explaining by telling you what a great vegan they were. Mm-hmm. And I hate to tell this to Ali, but either you're vegan or you're not. There's not more vegan or less vegan.
Yeah, this idea of, militant or puritanical veganism, because again, let's go back to the definition of veganism, and that is to reduce and or eliminate harm to all creatures in as much as is practicably possible.
Yeah, and he alludes to that.
He does.
In this Substack article.
Yes. He continues, if anyone high profile in the vegan scene became an apostate to veganism, I would be one of the first to say they were never really vegan to begin with. Once you truly get it, there's no going back. In my early 20s, my wardrobe was a parade of activist slogans, t-shirts and hoodies that screamed meat is murder and dairy is scary. I wasn't just avoiding animal products, I was trying to save the world from them. I gave speeches to thousands, created a popular vegan YouTube channel back in 2015, helped produce vegan documentaries and online content, and later directed the Netflix original Seaspiracy, a film that went viral, hit Netflix's global top 10, and urged millions to go vegan for the ocean. Celebrities from Sir Paul McCartney, Kourtney Kardashian, Hugh Jackman, Tom Brady, and countless influencers and institutions all joined in the chorus. 100% veganism, I promised, was the only moral high ground, the only ethical choice, the ultimate solution. To be clear, when it comes to protecting our ocean, one of the most impactful choices individuals in the industrialized world can make is shifting toward a more plant-based diet. An estimated 90% of large fish have already been wiped out, eaten into extinction. We explore this in depth in our The Seaspiracy Observer Substack. Industrial fishing, where massive floating factories sweep up everything in their path, is devastating marine ecosystems. Whales, dolphins, and sea turtles are being wiped out in fishing nets. And the industry is also fueling widespread human rights abuses, including slavery, as captains resort to desperate measures to cut costs amid declining catches. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The only difference in my views over the last 4 years since the release of Seaspiracy is that I now will publicly concede that farm-raised oysters and some other bivalves are a very sustainable and ecologically beneficial form of fishing. Sentience of oysters is also very ambiguous, and also that there are forms of recreational fishing done sparingly in remote regions, catching a few of some common species that do fall into the sustainable camp. However, things go downhill when masses of investment bankers gear up to the nines and go spearfishing on a reef and take everything in the name of recreational sport. That's a big no-no.
Interesting how he touts himself as the most vegan of vegans and then goes on to say that it's okay to fish or eat oysters and, all of these things as long as it's not done on an industrial scale.
Right. And while the sentience of oysters may be in doubt, that is true. They're still looking for...
Sure, they don't have a nervous system. They don't have a brain, according to what we know so far.
Right, exactly. We're still looking for evidence of sentience in oysters.
Right.
That is true. But it is factual that fish of all sizes, of all species, are sentient and do feel pain. So all of a sudden, it's no longer about the animals.
For him, yeah. It doesn't,
if meat is murder, well, so is fishing.
Yeah.
And I don't see where...
His logic is
spotty.
It's terribly flawed and continues to be flawed as we go on.
It does as we go on. But what has changed is my view on the bigger picture of veganism, the nuance and the uncomfortable gray area almost all vegans avoid. There are deeper, messier truths that the vegan movement fails to grapple with and ultimately has no good answer for. My mind has changed so much on this over the last year that I'm not sure I would still call myself vegan with a capital V anymore. But more on what I'm eating and what I'm not eating later in the article. After 13 years in the trenches, I no longer believe veganism delivers on its promises, the promises I stood behind. The promise that a vegan diet owns the monopoly on causing the least harm to animals through its dietary approach, and that by partaking in a vegan lifestyle, you too are necessarily causing the least harm to animals. That statement will confuse some.
Yeah, I'm confused.
It will enrage others.
I'm enraged.
To many, it will feel like betrayal. But to me, it feels like honesty. And as I'm about to point out, a major warning to the vegan movement on how it has let the identity of veganism blind itself to the reality of why people became vegan in the first place. Before you label me a sellout, a traitor, or a hypocrite, hear me out.
Too late.
I'm not swinging to the other extreme and telling people to eat bacon-wrapped foie gras topped with caviar for breakfast, lunch, and dinner while dressed in snow leopard fur. I'm here to point out what should have been pointed out to you and me 10 years ago, but wasn't, because people were too hyped up on the image and excitement of veganism to realize and notice its own contradictions. See, now I take issue with this point. The idea that veganism is not an ethic, that it is not a lifestyle, that it is an image,
right,
really, really bothers me.
Yeah, I think maybe he's been in that sector too long.
Perhaps.
And he thinks so much of himself that he thinks that all vegans are like that we all just think so much of ourselves and we're doing this to bolster our public image and that we're not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I think he's projecting a little bit here.
Yes. And may I also remind those still ideologically steeped in a cultish form of veganism. Okay, I'm also going to object to this. What, by definition, makes someone's practice of veganism cultish?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he's alluding to there.
I'm not either, but that's one of those words that you need to be very, very careful with.
Yeah. Well, because here is where he goes on to state the vegan society definition of veganism. So I think what he's saying is people who are strict vegans, he sees them as cultish.
Yes, but again, the actual structure and function of a cult is something that is highly toxic, even dangerous.
Right. And
to imply that veganism in and of itself has that same structure, I think is incredibly irresponsible.
Oh, it's totally irresponsible. And I think it begs the question, if we're in a cult, then who is our leader?
Yeah, because I sure haven't found one.
Right.
Okay. So the definition of veganism, for any of us who may have forgotten, veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose.
Yeah, then he goes on to insult our intelligence by telling us what the definition of practicable is.
Which is capable of being done or put into practice successfully and reasonably, feasible under the circumstances. So if you put those things together, the idea is that one's veganism, or what is practicable and possible, may change with given circumstances.
Absolutely.
For example, not that this would happen, I would prepare, but anyway, if I wound up at a work-related function and there were no options for me, there were no vegan options amongst the food that was being served.
And you weren't allowed to leave and get your own food, and you weren't allowed to bring in your own food.
Right.
What would you do?
What would I do? Well, that depends. If one of the options, you know what? No, I probably wouldn't. I probably would just say, no, that's fine. I'll wait and eat when I go home, to be completely honest. But if
But that's you.
But that's me.
Yeah.
Right. Would I think poorly of someone who perhaps hadn't eaten all day?
Or maybe someone who's diabetic and they
that's
have
right,
to eat
they have
something.
to eat. And it's like, oh, well, there's a pasta with a cream sauce.
And I don't know what's in it.
And I don't know what's in it, except that you know that there's some dairy.
Right.
Definitely cream, possibly cheese. Is that the end of the world? No, because we're talking about what is practicable and possible in the moment.
Right.
We ourselves, early in our veganism, when we went to Ireland, whenever we were eating out, we relaxed to vegetarian
because it was so difficult.
It was so hard.
Yeah, it's much better now.
Yeah, it was so hard in Ireland at that time to get food that did not include dairy.
Yeah.
It was next to impossible.
Yeah, they like their dairy there.
So are there circumstances in which the full practice of veganism, meaning completely excluding animal products, is more or less feasible? Yes.
Yeah.
Of course there are. And the definition of veganism allows for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Even Donald Watson, one of the founders of the Vegan Society in 1944, acknowledges that while the goal is to avoid all forms of animal exploitation and cruelty, there are real-world limitations. And it's those real-world terms I'm about to explore in this article. This isn't a hit piece. It's a reckoning, my reckoning, and public confession that I was wrong.
And just to give, slight spoiler, his huge reckoning and his huge real world limitation was marshmallows.
That's right. The title of this article is The Marshmallows That Shook My World.
Yeah, let that sink in for a little bit.
I'm sorry, but have marshmallows ever really shaken anybody's world?
Not mine.
I have a hard time imagining that.
Yeah, not mine, ever.
Anyway, the first time I began to seriously question veganism wasn't during some dramatic crisis or major revelation. It was, in fact, a moment so small and seemingly trivial that it could easily have been overlooked. And yet, that moment became the first crack in the door, the subtle shift that led me to re-examine everything I believed about veganism. It began in the lead up to Easter in 2024 with something as innocent as planning a camping trip with my family to a mountainous forest with a beautiful flowing river here in Australia. We wanted our kids to have the full experience. Stars overhead, the crackle of a fire, and of course, marshmallows. For little children, few moments are more magical. But as a vegan, even a marshmallow requires forethought and effort.
Well, it kind of does. If you want vegan marshmallows, you would have had to have thought of that ahead of time. Sure.
Yes, I don't deny that.
Yeah.
None of the big supermarkets near us in Australia stock vegan marshmallows. So in order to give our children that classic campfire treat, we had to go out of our way to find them. And by out of our way, I mean a 60-minute round trip into the city, over a toll bridge, in a part of the town we never go to, just to visit a specialty vegan store.
Now, let me just stop you there. He had to drive 30 minutes away.
Yes.
Okay. He's making it a little dramatic.
A little bit, yeah. 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And he asks us, let that sink in. Instead of spending a few dollars at the supermarket down the road for a giant pack of regular marshmallows made in our own country, we spent a total of an hour in the car, paid over $11 in tolls, who knows how much on fuel, exhausted ourselves as already tired parents getting the kids ready in and out of the car, and ended up purchasing a tiny imported bag of vegan marshmallows all the way from Germany for, drumroll please, $16. While researching this article, I found them also stocked on Amazon for almost $20, not including postage.
Now, bear in mind, this is Australian dollars,
Yes.
so they would be less in the States.
They would be less in the States. $16 for marshmallows. A tiny packet that smooshed all together like glue, since it doesn't have the rigidity of regular animal gelatin marshmallows. This was insane, I thought to myself. That 283-gram bag of smooshed up $16 vegan marshmallows was 539% more expensive than regular marshmallows. Another way of saying this is that for the price of 283 grams of vegan marshmallows, I could have purchased 1.8 kilograms of regular marshmallows. The local supermarket was selling 300-gram bags of marshmallows for $2.50. Just look at the price comparison of the image above and below. And he has images in this article of the bag of dandies that was purchased, and then the bag of the So Soft jumbo roasters that he's comparing them to.
Yeah.
As I picked them up, I felt a jolt of disbelief. And as we drove home, that disbelief grew into something deeper, an unease I couldn't shake. All of this time and money, I thought, for a packet of marshmallows, just to save on eating a tiny bit of gelatin? Was this really what ethical living looked like? Is this what people needed to do to be ethical people? Is this what I had been asking people to do? To be deemed anything other than an evil animal abuser? And most importantly, was this actually helping animals in any measurable way? I began doing the math in my head on the way home. Not just the financial cost, but the opportunity cost and the total footprint of this ethical purchase. The time spent, the money wasted, the environmental toll of driving across the city, importing sugary fluff from the other side of the planet, all in the name of making a morally superior choice for the animals.
Okay, what he's failing to notice here is that he had choices, but he's leaving one choice out, which is to not buy marshmallows.
Or to make them yourself.
Right, or to make them yourself. And also, he completely ignoring the fact that the choice to buy vegan marshmallows, you don't buy them because you think you're saving an animal by buying vegan marshmallows.
No.
You buy them because you don't want to spend your money to support a system that's filled with cruelty and massive amounts of animal suffering.
That's right.
He doesn't mention that at all.
No.
It's all about him and his feeling of being morally superior.
Yes, and his feeling of being wildly inconvenienced by needing to buy vegan marshmallows.
Right. Instead, he could have used this as a teaching moment for his kids and say, look, I'm sorry, we're not going to have marshmallows because we don't want to drive an hour. Talk about all those ecological factors, using the gas and your time and all that to buy vegan marshmallows. So we're not going to have marshmallows. And this is why.
That's right.
He could have explained that, and I'm sure the kids would be fine. And look, I was a kid who went on camping trips with my family. I know you did too.
Yep.
There was not one camping trip that stuck out in my mind because of marshmallows.
No.
It was all the other things that you did. Maybe you
Absolutely.
waded in a creek. Maybe you rode your bike. Maybe you hiked in the woods. Maybe you found a frog. Those little things. It had nothing to do with the food and the marshmallows.
Well, and if there's one thing that I loved making over the fire, yeah, it's those, those sandwich irons that we have.
Yeah, camp sandwiches.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we would do them either, of course, at the time I was a child and I was not vegan.
Sure.
So we would do them with deli meats and cheese, or we would do them with pie fillings, like apple or cherry pie fillings, and make camp pies. They were fantastic. I don't have any particular memory of a marshmallow being the most important thing about a camping trip.
He could have just not purchased
That's right.
the marshmallow.
Or, given his new philosophy, he could have just bought the non-vegan marshmallows.
Right.
And chalked it up to practicably possible.
Practically possible, yes. But then he wouldn't be able to feel morally superior.
That's right. That question, was it actually doing any good, wouldn't leave me alone. Not because marshmallows were a big part of my family's diet, they aren't, or that we couldn't survive without them, we can, but because I know deep down this same logic applied to countless other food items on the edges of the bell curve of what we consume. So I dug deeper. I looked into what actually goes into regular marshmallows so I could quantify some sense of animal suffering in the choice. And what did I find? Only 1 gram of animal gelatin are used per 100 grams of marshmallows. That means even in a whole 1 kilogram bag, you're looking at around 10 grams of animal-derived product, a minuscule amount.
But not a minuscule amount of suffering on the other end of that.
That's right.
Of those grams of gelatin.
And are animals specifically killed to create gelatin?
No, it's a byproduct.
No, it's a byproduct of the meat industry, as is the leather industry, as are many, many other things. So yes, the amount is small. You're missing the point.
It's completely missing the point.
He continues, and here I was, burning not only precious dollars, but also fuel. Using roads built through industrial systems which often require stearic acid, tallow, animal-based glues, bone char, casein, and who knows what other animal derivatives, and relying on international air freight from the other side of the world just to avoid those 3 grams of gelatin. Okay. So he's equating using a road, any road, as being more problematic than consuming animal products.
Right.
We have no control over what goes into the construction and maintenance of our roads.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt in my mind that there are animal products included in that.
Yeah. His arguments are starting to sound like carnist arguments.
Well,
right?
What it sounds like to me is he's looking for just about any justification he can find.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the amount of gelatin used in marshmallows is negligent. It's minuscule.
Yeah.
Why am I avoiding that? Why am I putting extra time and money and driving on roads that animals were probably killed to create and probably contain animal products?
Yeah.
Like, it's awful for me to use that road. Like, I'm sorry. No.
The excuses continue.
They do. Add in $10 for tolls, $10 or more for fuel as a guesstimate. And the cost of insurance, wear and tear. Okay.
I had to get insurance to go buy marshmallows.
And the wear and tear on my car for a 1-hour road trip, you just would not believe it.
Yeah.
And my time. An hour of your time. I am sorry, sir, but you made the choice.
That's what I'm saying.
To devote an hour of your time.
He made that choice.
To getting non-vegan marshmallows for your children. Yeah. Nobody made you do that.
Exactly.
There is no cult telling you that in order to be a good vegan, you must get vegan marshmallows.
Right.
And you must drive an hour and pay what you're
$16.
estimating is close to $40 all told.
Right.
For the privilege.
Right.
It became clear this was no longer a logical commitment to causing less suffering. I was doing it for puritanical reasons, to protect my image as a vegan activist filmmaker.
So there you go. He admits it.
That's right.
He admits
that for him, from the beginning,
Yeah.
I am going to argue that his interest was not in the vegan movement as a movement,
Right.
but in his own image
Yes.
as a vegan activist filmmaker.
Exactly.
And because he has come to this realization and is probably a little bit disturbed by it,
Right.
he is attempting to deflect that feeling of, oh, well, if I was only doing it for image, that's what everybody else is doing
Exactly.
too, because I was the most vegan of vegans.
Right. Yeah, so he's projecting his
So if
motives.
it was all a facade for me,
Then it must be for everyone
a
else.
facade for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually not going to go on with this article because
Yeah.
it's rather lengthy and it brings in some things that I just don't think
No,
are
he goes into
important.
some biblical stuff. I don't. Yeah.
there's just no need for that.
Yeah.
And so I really do think that we've gotten to the core of what it is. And it took getting halfway into the article to find out what the problem actually was.
Yeah.
And that's for him, veganism was less about the animals, less about the planet, less about human health, and all about image, even if it, at the beginning, was a subconscious thing that he has just now realized after 13 years in the movement.
Yeah. And the fact that he made an almost hour-long YouTube video that says pretty much the same thing that his Substack article says,
Yeah.
tells me that he's still wanting that image and accolades from somebody or for something. I kind of get the feeling that he may have cooked all this up just to get his name out there again. You know, the Seaspiracy thing
Who
has
knows?
died down for him.
Yeah,
you know,
that was a while ago.
maybe he's trying to branch off into other areas of filmmaking.
Who knows?
He doesn't want to be pigeonholed
Sure.
as an animal activist. And, you know,
I mean, I don't really want to assign motive.
No,
I mean, if this
yeah.
was, in fact, you know, a revelatory moment for him, fine.
Right.
Absolutely fine. But make it about coming to your own conclusions and not vilifying the entire movement
Right.
and not vilifying everybody else in the world
Yeah.
who ascribes to veganism as a lifestyle
Yeah.
and as an ethical choice.
Yeah. And in the video, he actually kind of expounds on, like I said, a lot of like carnist arguments about like, you know, when crops are harvested,
Sure.
the damage that's done, and you know that animals are killed during the harvesting of crops.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's inevitable.
Yeah, that is inevitable. And he just makes all these, like he's really reaching,
Yes.
you know, to justify his choice that was spurred on by a bag of Dandy's marshmallows.
Ridiculous.
I really do find it ridiculous. And a little part of me is like, he's just trying to get reactions
And that could
from
be.
people, you know?
And that could be. Well, he got one from us.
He did.
He really did. And I
did.
have to say, if this had shown up on a Reddit, am I the asshat?
Yeah.
The answer would be a resounding, oh, you bet you are.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You are.
Full asshat.
Yeah.
Both cheeks.
Yeah.
Out in the breeze.
Right. The fact that he didn't just look at this situation as an opportunity to have a really good conversation with his kids about why we don't buy regular marshmallows.
Yeah.
Just, it just blows my mind.
It really does.
It's
but
like-
he couldn't have taken the far simpler route of just not having marshmallows.
Yeah, the third choice. Don't buy the
Instead,
marshmallows.
Let's do something else. Let's get those sandwich irons and let's make pies
Right.
over the fire.
But
like,
no,
let's
you
do something.
they
It had to be marshmallows
the camping trip would have been a complete failure
if there were no marshmallows.
without marshmallows.
Of course.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And yeah, so that's our first installment of the Why Files.
Indeed it is. We hope you enjoyed.
Moving on to our Noteworthy segment. What is the future of plant-based foods? Have you asked yourself that recently?
Well, sure. And as far as I'm concerned, quite good. I think the future is quite bright. And before we get into this article, which is coming from Vox and was written by Kenny Torella, I just want to say that most vegan food is just food.
Just regular food.
It's just regular food.
It's just regular food that didn't come from an animal.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's fruits and vegetables and grains and beans and nuts and seeds. What we're talking about in this article is processed food.
Yes, ready-made plant-based foods.
Yes. All right. So here we go. I cover the plant-based food industry for Vox, so I get a lot of free food samples. A lot. Some of the products that startups mail me are delicious. Many are just okay, and a few have been downright awful, bad enough to make me wonder out loud, why are they letting people eat this stuff? A plant-based steak from the startup Juicy Marbles in Slovenia was meaty and, well, quite juicy, while another startup steak was watery and flavorless. A new plant-based milk product from Silk, one of the more established brands, was rich and smooth, while a new startup's milk was much too sweet and left behind a chalky aftertaste. I've also sampled enough vegan chicken nuggets and tenders to feed a small village, though that village would be left gastronomically unsatisfied as most were mediocre, with only a few standouts. Nuggets from VFC and Tyndall, wings from Simulate, and tenders from Atlas Monroe. The new foods I've tried are just a smattering of what's on offer from the dozens and dozens and dozens of plant-based startups that have sprung up in recent years, fueled by billions of dollars in venture capital cash. It's the vegan gold rush, and while all that investment has been great for the companies, I worry about the downside for consumers and the plant-based movement, a glut of mediocre products. The vegan gold rush is a direct effect of the sheer difficulty of changing hearts and minds, not to mention diets, on meat eating by trying to appeal to consumers' stomachs. Nearly all meat, milk, and eggs are produced on factory farms that pose a risk of incubating the next pandemic while polluting the air and water, not to mention condemning animals to a lifetime of misery and subjecting meatpacking workers to hazardous conditions. Despite a majority of Americans telling pollsters they support a societal shift toward plant-based eating, moral pleas have largely gone unrequited. U.S. per capita meat consumption continues to rise, while global meat consumption, excluding fish, jumped from 65 pounds per person in 2000 to 75 pounds in 2019 and is projected to increase significantly in coming decades, especially in low and middle-income countries. The new generation of animal-free meat, milk, and eggs has been promoted as a way to shortcut the moral debate by using technology to make plant-based ingredients taste uncannily like animals. If that can happen, the thinking goes, consumers will be more eager to switch over because they won't feel as though they're sacrificing their taste buds to their ethics. It's much too early to tell if that theory of change is right. It usually takes decades, not years, for a new technology to achieve widespread adoption, and many never do. The same goes for new culinary categories. But for that shift to happen on a wider scale, plant-based foods need to deliver on their gastronomic promise. And the glut of mediocre products that have landed in my mailbox certainly isn't going to help the sector's long-term goal, and may very well threaten it. If there's a plethora of really poor products on the market, and people who don't do their research or haven't been exposed to better products choose one of those as their first foray into plant-based foods, that can certainly create a negative halo around the category, says Jennifer Bartashis, a senior analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. It's hard to tease out the effect of subpar products on the broader plant-based meat sector. But after years of startups capturing the public's curiosity and food dollars, there is evidence that the category is starting to plateau.
That's a good point, that someone could purchase a plant-based product, never having one before, and happen to pick one that's not particularly good, and then just tell themselves, no, the plant-based stuff is not any good.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That if you are looking to replace meat-based staples or animal-based staples in your diet with something that is animal free and you don't do the research and you maybe do wind up with a lesser product, then that can definitely skew your perception of plant-based processed foods
in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The president of Maple Leaf Foods, a major Canadian food company that entered the plant-based market in 2017, said in a February 2022 earnings call that the refrigerated plant-based meat category experienced explosive growth in 2019 of 59% and 2020, 75%, but just 1% in 2021. His explanation? Consumers' needs simply were not met, and they did not repeat purchases. Plant-based meat is hurting at the drive-thru, too. Analysts say sales of McDonald's McPlant burger, made with Beyond Meat, are lower than anticipated. The single largest Burger King franchise operator in the U.S. said in late 2020 that Impossible Whopper sales had fallen by half from around 30 per store per day compared to when it first launched in August 2019. It was unrealistic for the explosive growth of the past few years to be sustained, and many players in big food are as bullish as ever on plant-based food. For example, Nestle is quickly launching new products across Europe, hopefully not too quickly though, while Unilever has pledged to make 1/5 of its ice cream portfolio dairy-free by 2030. But to meaningfully displace conventional animal agriculture, the plant-based sector will need to entice disengaged consumers with new and superior offerings. After all, according to one survey, consumers say novelty and curiosity are their primary motivations to give meat from plants a shot. Producers maintaining a much higher bar for taste and texture will be key.
I'd like to add something to that.
Go right ahead.
I think that places like McDonald's and Burger King, how they mentioned that the demand for their plant-based burgers has fallen by half, they said. Mm-hmm. I think they would have found that that probably wouldn't have happened had they actually made the entire burger plant-based.
That's right, because the McPlant is not plant-based. Neither is the Impossible Whopper.
Right. I think if they had gone the distance and put vegan cheese.
Yep.
Whoppers don't come with cheese.
They do not.
But if they made it so you could get vegan cheese.
Vegan mayo.
And vegan mayo. Just those two things.
Yep.
If they'd have done just those two things, I think they would have gotten more repeat customers, at least out of the vegan community.
I agree.
Enough to have kept demand higher.
Absolutely.
And same with McDonald's.
And I think another thing that needs to be taken into consideration when we're talking about fast food is that the price of fast food, not plant-based fast food, but all fast food, has skyrocketed in recent years. Absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, I was watching a YouTube video this morning of a guy who was driving through Chipotle and paid $25 for a burrito.
Yeah, he put a lot of stuff on that burrito.
Well, I'm sure that he did. I'm sure that there were add-ons, but still, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. It's supposed to be, fast food was supposed to be, quick and affordable. Now, mind you, most of those restaurants will have like meal deals.
Yes.
But you will never find a plant-based option within those meal deals.
No, and even those meal deals now are $9 and $10.
Yeah.
They're not $5 anymore.
Yeah.
As they used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that inflation will always be a thing and that prices will always go up, that the market is meant for that to happen. And so, and given that we really don't eat fast food, it means nothing to me. But if we're talking about culture in general, fast food is still a big thing. And so as people become less and less able to afford fast food as a regular part of their lives, then of course demand is going to go down.
Yeah.
One lesson that can be learned from the biggest players in the field is that patience pays. Impossible Foods was in stealth mode for 5 years developing its burger before it launched, and it's now available in every Burger King. Eat Just toiled away on its egg product for almost 6 years and says it now has 99% of the U.S. plant-based egg market, though they have very little competition. Beyond Meat spent several years on its flagship burger before its massive IPO in 2019. The company says it allocates 14.4% of its net revenue to R&D. Now, these three companies, Impossible, Eat Just, and Beyond, are certainly the leaders.
Yeah, they're the big players.
They are the big players.
Sure.
There's no question about that. And they are well on their way to making their products not only spectacularly flavorful. I mean, for us, we know that our big treat once or twice a summer is to get Impossible meat and make burgers on the grill.
Yeah.
Because it so perfectly replicates
I think so, yeah.
a beef burger.
Good.
It's just incredibly good, if not even better than a ground beef burger.
Well, definitely better cruelty-wise.
Oh, certainly. But I'm talking about flavor. And also, like, where I'm concerned, Just Egg has no competition.
No, there are
in
some
the egg-based market.
Yeah, there's some competitors out there, and while we've never tried them, I have seen enough people talk about trying them and saying that they were terrible. So
yeah, so not only are they well on their way to making products that people want, but they're also well on their way to making those products affordable.
Yeah.
And it's because they've been able to scale up. Some of the best tasting products out there are still not available on a wide scale. And so when you can get them, they're still quite pricey.
Yeah.
And I do think that that is a major drawback in the plant-based food
price,
industry.
Definitely. That's definitely going to be a deciding factor when someone's at the store. They see that the plant-based version of what they're looking for is, $5 more.
Right.
They're not going to consider it.
For sure. Today, though, many startups are putting out products just a couple of years after securing funding, and unreasonable expectations from investors could be a cause. We are seeing more generalist investors enter the space, and we're seeing that education is important so they understand what's happening in order to make the products that they're backing, says Lainey Clark of the Good Food Institute, a nonprofit that advocates for alternative proteins like plant-based and cell-cultured meats. When these startups come to market with a product, they're taking a significant risk that consumers won't give the brand a second chance if the first experience isn't pretty darn good. But much of the blame can't be laid at the feet of investors. Startup founders, like the rest of us, can be too optimistic in estimating how long something will take to do, says Josh Tetrick, CEO of Eat Just, which makes plant-based eggs and cell-cultured chicken meat. An entrepreneur truly will believe that they can launch a product in 18 months, let's say, and they're raising capital to do that. And they made that outside commitment to investors, and understandably so. But now there's pressure and expectations to do that. One upside of getting a product to market, even if it's too soon, is that it can light a fire underneath startups to make it better. When you know something is out there, there is a bit more of a motivation to improve it, Tetrick says. And when startups feel they have improved a product, some use it as an opportunity to communicate their iterative approach to consumers. While food companies are constantly reformulating their products, some plant-based startups number each reformulation like a software company would. For example, Beyond Meat is now on version 3.0 of its beef burger, while Simulate is on version 2.0 of its chicken nugget. Consumers say taste is the top factor when deciding which meat alternative brand to buy, but clean labels and recognizable ingredients comes in second. Bartashis argues that too many startups are shaping products around that second expectation, which could also help explain the mediocrity of the results. So if the focus is on all organic, non-GMO, all vegan, and it's got no gluten, you're so in the pursuit of labels that sometimes you lose sight that the product itself has to taste good. All food companies conduct taste tests, but when I visited Beyond Meat's headquarters earlier this year, it was apparent just how seriously they take feedback. The company has a room dedicated to gathering it, conducting dozens of sensory tests each week and third-party off-site taste tests too. The room was specifically designed to remove bias, from the paint color on the walls to the light bulbs used in the booths, to ensure that we can get unbiased, real-time feedback on our product development work, a Beyond Meat spokesperson told me over email. If big R&D budgets, rigorous taste testing, and mega celebrity partnerships, Beyond Meat just appointed Kim Kardashian as its chief taste consultant, aren't enough to dethrone animal meat from the center of the plate, cell-cultured meat, created by taking a small sample of animal cells and growing them in bioreactors, might win over consumers, at least on taste. During a recent trip to San Francisco, I tried cell-cultured salmon, chicken, bacon, sausage, burgers, and meatballs. While some were 100% cell-cultured, meaning they were biologically almost identical to meat from animals, most included both cell-cultured and plant-based ingredients. But one thing was for certain. All of the products were noticeably meatier, juicier, firmer, and tastier than their purely plant-based counterparts. Whether these startups will be able to produce cell-cultured meat at scale at an affordable price point and get consumers on board with such a novel food product is an open question. They currently lack U.S. regulatory approval to commercially sell their products, and in Singapore, the one country that has approved a cell-cultured product, Eat Just is selling its chicken nuggets at a loss. The distance that even the best startups still have to go to make hyper-realistic analogs, despite billions in collective investment, illustrates just how hard it is to make plant-based meat, milk, and eggs that can compare to conventional products. And easy money might be drying up. Venture capital firms are tightening their belts in the current economic environment. We're in the boom times of the vegan gold rush, and eventually many startups will go bust. That's just the nature of Silicon Valley and the business cycle more broadly. If a tech startup goes bust with a bad product, however, it doesn't sour people on computers and smartphones. But there's a real risk that if the plant-based industry doesn't improve its offerings, all that consumers will be left with is a bad taste in their mouths.
So I think what he's saying is the future of plant-based products can be good, but these companies need to make sure that taste is of utmost importance.
That taste is at the center of things.
That they can't just have flashy packaging and, and all this and get celebrities to back their products. They have to have the taste to back it up.
That's right.
Or people are not going to return to the product. And I know we've had situations, we don't buy a lot of replacers.
No.
But when we first went vegan, we wanted to try them. And anytime we saw something new, we would try it. And
we still do that a little bit. If we see something new, we're like, we've never tried that. Let's see what that's about.
But if we try it and it's not so good, we don't go back.
Right. I mean, and to be completely honest, because we don't eat a lot of replacers as part of our daily diet, we don't buy the ones we love all that frequently.
No, they're treats.
They are. They're treats. So like every now and again, we'll get Beyond sausage, Italian sausage for a pasta dish.
Yeah.
Or we'll get Impossible meat to make burgers. Something along those lines. I mean, and we had a few episodes not too long ago where we were talking about the wonder that is Juicy Marbles.
Yeah.
But right now, Juicy Marbles is so expensive.
Yeah, they're such a small company.
Because they're such a small company that it's prohibitive to keep it around all the time.
It is. But I do think that there is definitely a place for these products. And I think that say you have people in your family that you're trying to convince to go vegan, these products, I think, play a huge part in that.
Yeah, I think they're a really, really important part of kind of that transition, of that gateway into veganism, where we can convince people that, yes, it's possible to have almost all, if not all, of the things that you loved pre-veganism in vegan form.
Right. I mean, we're living in amazing times.
We really are.
In that regard. That pretty much everything that you can eat vegan. So...
Indeed.
Yeah, so I think the future is bright for plant-based products. I think there's new and innovative things coming out all the time.
Yeah, there are. But I still do want to go back to that idea that eating vegan is not about eating replacers.
No.
It's about eating real food.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying replacers aren't real food. They are.
Right.
But you can just keep it simple.
You can, and we do.
Fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, nuts and seeds.
Yeah.
Really easy.
Yeah.
And really affordable. So.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to leave that at that.
I guess we can move on to our main topic. This week's main topic is the bird flu. Avian influenza. Where are we in the battle against the next pandemic?
Well, we're still in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Per an article coming out of the University of Minnesota on June 3rd, H5N1 avian flu has struck another Arizona layer farm.
Yeah. So the Department of Agriculture is confirming that this is still happening on farms throughout the United States and around the world.
Yes.
There's a Canadian ostrich farm that has been struck by it in British Columbia. The fact that it's not in the news, number one, because there's so much other stuff that apparently mainstream media doesn't want to focus on public health. It's not being talked about by the people that represent us at all.
Right.
And it's not being highlighted in any way, shape, or form, even from what I'm seeing on social media. Everything is all about Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Everything's Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He is like controlling the news cycle on a daily basis. And all we're ever getting from mainstream media is sound bites.
Yeah.
No in-depth reporting seems to have died in mainstream media. There are plenty of independent journalists out there that are trying to follow various things.
This is true.
In a deeper fashion. Yeah, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has issued a statement confirming that a third H5N1 avian flu outbreak at a large layer farm in Arizona has affected nearly 1.4 million birds.
Since the middle of May, the virus has hit 3 of the state's large layer farms, all in Maricopa County, leading to a loss of more than 5 million birds. The outbreak wiped out about 95% of the birds at Hickman Family Farms facilities and has shuttered all of the company's West Valley farms, according to local media.
Yeah, and then what was going on in Canada about the ostriches?
Ostriches at a farm in British Columbia, embroiled in a controversy over culling, were infected with a novel H5N1 reassortant that included the D1.3 genotype, according to a recent statement from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The reassortant hadn't been detected before in Canada, but was identified in March in a serious infection in an Ohio poultry worker. The outbreak at the ostrich farm was initially reported earlier this spring, and the company has not adhered to Canada's rules about culling and quarantine amid a public uproar over the federal laws that require that the birds be destroyed.
So let's go to the Bulwark, who has an article, and the article is titled, RFK Jr. may have just ruined our best weapon against bird flu.
Yes, that's a fair description of what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did last week when he canceled a $766 million government contract to develop a new bird flu vaccine. Canceled it.
Yeah, the contract with Moderna, the Massachusetts-based biotech company that developed and continues to produce one of the original COVID-19 vaccines. The Biden administration awarded the contract last year through a special government program designed to fund preparation for future public health threats. Of course, anything that Biden has come up with, we're just destroying.
That's right. Moderna was trying to use its know-how from COVID to invent a vaccine platform it could deploy rapidly against several types of influenza, including the H5N1 bird flu, a version of which, if you haven't heard, has spread across the United States and is ravaging poultry farms. But it's not the price of eggs keeping infectious disease doctors up at night. It's the possibility that a strain mutates, jumps species, and ends up in humans, who then start transmitting it to each other. It's happened before in mostly isolated outbreaks with mortality rates that reached 50%. That dwarfs the comparable figure for COVID-19, which in most countries was in the low single digits, and yet still killed more than 7 million people around the world, including more than 1 million in the United States. That death toll would have been even higher if not for speedy development of COVID vaccines, including Moderna's, whose secret sauce is mRNA technology that generally allows for much quicker production. That's why 2 of the scientists most responsible for the breakthrough won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. And it's why that bird flu contract went to Moderna, whose early tests on the bird flu vaccine have already produced promising results. But we're never going to see those results.
No.
Because the contract has been canceled.
It's been canceled.
That's right. Let's not spend money on protecting the public.
Yeah. The contract was
from an outbreak.
Yeah, the contract was through the Department of Health and Human Services, which, thanks to Donald Trump, is under the leadership of Kennedy, the longtime vaccination critic, whose egregious lies about the COVID shot include grossly exaggerated the prevalence of side effects and claiming it offers no protection against severe disease. And on a side note, he's also limiting who can now get the COVID vaccine.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. And also canceled not just the H5N1 vaccine, but Moderna was working on a combination vaccine for influenza and COVID.
So it was just one shot.
So it was one shot instead of two.
Yeah.
So those of us who work in public sectors, who are around lots of people all the time, could protect ourselves from both a resurgence of influenza and a resurgence of COVID, which is likely to happen every year, with one shot instead of two. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
But now, not only are they canceling the development of that vaccine per HHS mandate, but they are restricting the people who can get COVID shots or COVID boosters or influenza shots or influenza boosters. It's insanity.
Yeah. And apparently Kennedy isn't commenting on the fact that he's canceled Moderna's contract for the bird flu vaccine, but an HHS spokesperson told reporters that the Moderna decision was about safety, integrity, and trust, and described the mRNA technology as undertested, even though that the COVID shots went through extensive randomized clinical trials before approval and have been closely monitored for adverse side effects ever since.
And have, without doubt, been phenomenally effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we went from hospitals filled with people on respirators to where we are now.
That's right.
Because of that vaccine.
That's right.
And people can say herd immunity all they want, all day long, but that's not what it is.
It isn't.
It is not herd immunity.
Nope. I mean, what else is there to say about that?
Yeah.
There's really not a lot. I don't think it takes much imagination to believe that H5N1 and any number of other animal-based pathogens are going to eventually jump species. I mean, they've already found H5N1 in cows.
Yeah.
And in pigs, I believe.
It has jumped to humans.
Right.
Humans, that last article said a worker in Ohio.
In Ohio, that's
had
right.
bird flu. And a lot of people are trying to play it down and say, well, bird flu is just like a bad cold. Well, people said the same thing about COVID.
They sure did.
Until it blew up,
That's right. And for many people, that's true.
Right. If you have a strong immune system, sure.
That's right. But for those whose immune systems are compromised, for those who have other underlying health conditions, something like an H5N1 or a COVID-19 can be and has proven to be fatal.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we, as a country, want to do everything we can to prevent that eventuality? Because it is an eventuality. It's not a possibility. There will be another pandemic.
Yeah. The when is just going to become sooner because of the people involved. This article goes on to explain that, like everything else, this administration and the agencies within it are bypassing all of the protocols that have kept things in check, right?
Yes.
This article goes on to say that what normally would happen is the CDC would issue vaccine guidelines by following a clear, methodical process that starts with the government scientists at CDC and other agencies collecting and analyzing the data, which then goes to an advisory committee of outside scientists who meet and discuss the evidence in public. The CDC director presides over those meetings and makes recommendations, which in turn requires a usually perfunctory sign-off from the HHS secretary, and that clearly didn't happen here because the advisory committee hasn't even met yet, and he's canceled this contract.
Right.
So, just like everything else that is happening within this administration, they're just throwing protocol out the window and doing whatever they feel like in response to whatever the Biden administration did.
That's right.
Did the Biden administration do this? Cancel it.
That's right. Reverse it.
Yeah.
We want none of that.
Yeah, let's not do the research, or let's fire all the people that have the knowledge and the intelligence to make these choices correctly.
And it's not, yeah, exactly. It needs to be about expertise.
Yeah. But no, let's let RFK Jr. make those decisions.
Yeah.
He's not a scientist.
No.
He's not a medical doctor.
No.
Pretty much, well, neither is our Surgeon General. So
True.
It is dangerous.
Isn't that insane? Would you ever have thought that that would have happened? That neither our Surgeon General nor our Director of HHS has any medical background.
Yeah. No, it's insanity.
How can you be called a Surgeon General when you are not a medical doctor? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I really don't. I think you buy your way in.
Having done some HR related stuff, I'm absolutely certain that someone somewhere must have written down a list of
Qualifications?
yes,
That need to be
minimum
met?
qualifications
Yeah.
that need to be met
Right.
for a position. And when it's a position as important and high profile as, let's say, Surgeon General or Director of Health and Human Services, I'm assuming that medical knowledge, proof of a degree in medicine,
It should be on that list.
would be on that list.
Yeah. Well, I believe the Surgeon General has some medical knowledge, just not a license to practice medicine.
Okay.
From what I've read. Yeah. It seems that you can either buy your way in or buy your way out of anything with this administration.
It does seem that way.
You know, people are being pardoned
Yep.
after members of their family have given billions of dollars or millions of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, let's not get started on that.
And then, you know, people are ending up in this cabinet that have no qualifications whatsoever.
Yeah.
That they must have bought their way in somehow. Or either they bought their way in, and not to sound like a, you know, tinfoil hat or anything, or they have knowledge of things
Yeah, that too.
that certain people don't want
I have no doubt.
revealed.
I have
And so,
no doubt that that is true.
This is the backdoor deal administration. For
well
sure.
titled.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Go you.
So, just know that the avian influenza did not go away,
No, not even close.
even though our government and it seems mainstream media would like you to think that.
Yeah.
And we'll keep tabs on it,
We sure will.
you know, to the best of our ability. We're not, you know, we don't have degrees in journalism.
We do not.
We certainly do not have any medical degrees,
We do not.
but we will try to forward any information that we come across as far as the bird flu goes
Absolutely.
in future episodes. Like I say about just about anything that has to do with the current administration, this is an ongoing
Saga.
saga, and I'm sure that we'll be back here again.
For sure.
So let's just move on to our assignment restaurant, SOS.
This week, we're taking a look at Pure Vegan Cafe. They've got two locations, 8369 Creedmoor Road in Raleigh, North Carolina, and 2812 Irwin Road, 104, Durham, North Carolina. At Pure Vegan Cafe, they focus on using high-quality, healthy ingredients to make great-tasting cold-pressed juices, smoothies, and 100% plant-based food. If you are in the mood for plant-based food, healthy beverages, acai bowls, or raw treats, be sure to check them out.
And let's look at their menu, because I love looking at the menu. Okay, first of all, under appetizers, the first thing I see is samosas.
Can't go wrong there.
So they won me over already.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yes. Best appetizer ever created.
And also, everything so far that I'm looking at, super affordable.
Beautiful, beautiful price range. And I'm actually looking also under the appetizers at the deconstructed samosa.
Oh, how fun.
It's an inside-out samosa with chana masala, pico, tamarind and mint chutney, and crispy potato noodles. That looks fantastic.
That's kind of brilliant.
I love that.
And it's only $7.75 for what looks like a pretty decent sized bowl of food.
Yeah,
They have some great looking burgers.
they do. The burgers do look beautiful.
They have pani puri.
They do have pani puri. I love pani puri. You've never had it.
I haven't, but I've always wanted to try it.
Yeah, it's an
Crispy-
experience.
It says it's crispy, bite-sized wheat puffs filled with seasoned potatoes served with a side of sweet and spicy tamarind and mint water.
So what
That
you do is
sounds
you
really
take
good.
these lovely little puffs.
Yeah.
These wheat puffs, and you dip them in the tamarind mint water.
Yeah.
And it's super, super spicy. Like, you can see videos of people eating pani puri and just sweating,
Yeah.
because of the intensity of the peppers and the intensity of the heat.
I would
It's
bet that
so
Pure
great.
Vegan Cafe's pani puri is not to that level.
Probably not.
Because
but
they want to
still,
make it so everybody can try
That's
it.
right. But still, it's really quite delightful that they have
It looks
that.
delicious.
It's awesome.
They have this massive looking breakfast sandwich. It's actually a breakfast burger, seasoned grilled burger, V egg, which I don't know what that is. Maybe they have their own. It just says V egg and V bacon. I don't know if maybe that's house-made stuff that they do.
Maybe.
Smoked Gouda cheese, fried onions, and a chipotle aioli.
That does look really
Doesn't that
really
look good?
That looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It really does.
I like that, a breakfast burger.
Oh, but see, the PVC tiki, which is a seasoned potato and peas deep fried patty, lettuce,
yeah.
tomato, avocado, microgreens, chipotle aioli, and honey mustard. That to me sounds amazing.
It looks really good.
It does.
It's a veggie burger stacked high with all kinds of really good stuff.
And they've also got beautiful chicken sandwiches. They've got hot dogs. They've got chili cheese fries. They've got a chana masala wrap.
Ooh.
And of course, they're wrapping their chana masala in naan. That looks phenomenal. There's also a kebab wrap,
Yeah.
a jackfruit biryani.
Wow. Yeah, this is a really complex menu.
This
they
is
have all kinds
gorgeous.
of fun breakfast stuff. Banana toast crunch, banana peanut butter granola, cacao chips, maple syrup on a toasted English muffin.
These just look so beautiful. They've got tacos. They've got veggie tacos. They've got chicken tacos. They've got chorizo tacos, soups and salads. Like, oh my gosh, the list just goes on. And so much of it is Indian inspired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really thinking we need to take a trip to North Carolina because this looks amazing.
It really does. And their breakfast menu is just like, I love breakfast. And the fact they have all day breakfast, I love that they have all day breakfast.
Yeah.
And they do things like chicken and waffles.
Yeah.
And they have these beautiful, like, Belgian waffle looking waffles that you can get with strawberries. They have French toast.
They have idli on the weekends.
They have,
They have a weekend brunch.
oh,
And one of
sambar
their
idli.
things is idli, which are soft, fluffy, steamed cakes, and they're served with sambar, which is a vegetable lentil stew. One of my favorites. I fell in love with it completely when I was in India. Also, there's a tofu platter. That scramble looks like something you would absolutely die for.
Yeah.
But just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. They also have, oh my gosh, lentil rice batter pancakes with the palm, which are gluten-free lentil rice battered pancakes.
Yeah.
Topped with onions, tomatoes, and cilantro.
Yeah. They
I
also
would be
have
into
lots
that,
of
too.
really great baked goods, too. Banana nut muffins, brownies, chipwiches, cookies, cupcakes. They have an entire menu of different sauces that you can order with your meals.
Yep.
And salads and slaws. And this is a really neat menu.
It is. I'm sold.
Something for everybody.
So if you are close to either Raleigh or Durham, North Carolina, get thee to Pure Vegan Cafe.
Do it.
Yes, do it.
Do it. And if you do it, send us a picture of your meal and we will enter you in to win our vegan dinner winner contest.
We sure will.
And you can email that to compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com. It's now time for our favorite portion of the show.
Must be listener shout out time.
It's listener shout out.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
This week's listener shout out goes to Kiwi Fayoa, a new YouTube subscriber.
Thank you for subscribing and for listening to the show. Send us your t-shirt size and address so we can send you Compassion and Cucumbers swag bag. You can text us using the link in our show notes. Include your name, your real name, not your YouTube handle. You can also email that information at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com or simply DM us on Instagram or Facebook.
And for the rest of you out there, if you want a listener shout out, please text, email, or DM us. Let us know what you think of the show and tell us a little bit about yourself. You can also always nominate someone else for a shout out.
And I guess it's time to wrap this baby up. But before we go, Don't forget, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to our YouTube. Share the show with a friend or family member who you think might enjoy what we talk about so we can reach more great people like you. If you want to get news about the show, you can do that by subscribing to our weekly newsletter at compassionandcucumbers.com.
And with that, it's time to sign off. You have just listened to episode 188 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, and there's nothing left to say but where cukes and compassion are always the fashion on the podcast.
Thanks, James.
Have a great week, everyone.
We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
We love you.
We really do, wholeheartedly. Bye-bye.
The end.
If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, well, you can do that by hopping on over to our Patreon page and becoming a patron. We have all the recipes from our vegan kitchen series up there, and we'll be adding some patron-only episodes in the near future. So thank you for supporting us at whatever level that you choose, and thank you again for listening to Compassion and Cucumbers podcast.